Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mafia and Gangsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's talk about another entry here. This one based on one of your newer suggestions. And this one I actually have heard of before, only because being a big Mafia buff, I've been able to come across this name before. But the curious thing is, despite all of his notorious actions, and he is truly considered probably the most violent mafioso gangster pretty much ever to have lived, he still remains rather anonymous in the overall world of the mafia. Like if you were to say that this guy and mention his name, most people would definitely not fall under recognition. People would absolutely start thinking, is this somebody from a movie or is this something else? He absolutely did influence, it seems like, certain movie aspects, but yes, indeed, he remains a very anonymous person. His name is this. You're looking at him now. He's known. His name was Sam DeStefano, but as always in the world of mafioso, they have a nickname, and so he was known as Mad Sam. And there was absolutely a concrete reason as to why that was his nickname, which I'll highlight several gruesome examples here. So let's go ahead. Let's talk about all the interesting information associated with this Mad Sam DeStefano. So who was this gangster, this so-called infamous and probably most well-known, in this case, violent and torturous mafia gangster out there? Well, he was someone who was born there in Chicago, or actually in southern Illinois back in 1909, but eventually he moved to Chicago, where essentially the rest of his life, that's where he came up in a career, professional career in the mafia world. This was someone that right from the very beginning was just a troubled person. Ever since he was a teen, he basically started a life of crime. In fact, at age 18, he raped a woman and then was convicted for it. But rather than turning his life around, he just continued on his brutal career crime spree after that. In fact, he had stuff involving weapon possessions, extortion, bank robberies, counterfeiting postage stamps, and this was all before even joining the world of the mafia. I don't know exactly the year that it happened, but eventually he joined the Chicago outfit, something called the 42 Gang, which was led by some mafia guy named Sam Giancano. And because of his lifelong passion, in this case, of doing bad things to others and then reveling and absolutely enjoying it, which I'll highlight more here in a minute, it seemed like he absolutely just fit right in. He was spearheading a lot of their operations, stuff that is far more profitable to the mafia world rather than the stuff I was just mentioning. Because again, it's interesting to highlight in the mafia world. There's the like in the Godfather movies and others, there's sometimes the romantic notion that everybody's just shooting each other up, but no, in a sense, that's only mainly like as a last resort, unless you have hot shots that do that kind of stuff. No, more along the lines, it's always about what's going to make money and what's going to make money quickly without attracting too much attention. That usually has to do with prostitution, drug trafficking, and loan sharking, which is what he was basically helping with the organization. And it took only a little while, but eventually he became what was known as a big fish within the gang, especially on the loan sharking side, because of his violent tendencies, because of the brutal ways that he made sure that he could collect debt payments. He was absolutely someone that was able to create a very lucrative business for it. Just a quick recap on what loan sharking is. Essentially, it's just loaning money out to people who normally couldn't get such loans or needed something quick for maybe some kind of illegal activity or something under the radar. And then, of course, the mafia member would be paid back, but at an extremely high interest rate. I think I was reading in one of the books one time about Tony the Ant Spilatro, and it was something along the lines of just crazy interest rate, like 200% a week, something along those lines. So it's not something where like this is going to be a good loan. No, it's a bad loan all around, clearly, but just the interest puts people in a lot of debt. And so whenever that happens, there would be these enforcers in the mafia world that would try to get the money back. What's interesting to note, though, is again, the movies romanticize the notion that whenever someone is is, let's say, late on a debt payment, they're just instantly killed. No, nothing like that. I mean, obviously that happened, but nothing in the majority, because you want to get paid. You want to absolutely have that money paid back. It makes no sense, though, to kill the person that owes you money, because then you'll get none of it back. So generally, whenever they had to rough up people for late payments, it was mainly along the lines of some kind of attack, but not something permanent, not like breaking both legs or doing something that prevent them from working, because otherwise that's essentially how they would how would they get paid afterward, in other words. So they used him as a loan collector, and he was very, very good at it. He definitely had a lot of fun with regards to his methods of repayment. He had a torture chamber that was set up, in fact, within his basement. He was even, in this case, he was forecast enough to look and make sure that everything was soundproof, and he had some anonymous torture devices, stuff that wouldn't stand out under normal situations, but that he had ready to use for his debt repayments. Some of it included actually an ice pick. That was his favorite thing in the world, because he would use the ice pick to slash and stab his victims, whoever owed him money, and it would be basically any part of the body was open to fair game, short of course, killing someone, unless he just went too far. That actually ties into why he was called Mad Sam. He was so good at what he did. Like, in other words, he absolutely just reveled in creating torture and creating pain and making certain that people were just absolutely just haunted by his experiences, that even his own mafia colleagues decided not to make him a made man, even though he was quite lucrative in the world of loan sharking and other type of operations. It was decided that because he was so out there, he was so crazy in that regard, they just couldn't have somebody that was that loose, that unrestrained, running a joint or running some kind of mafia outfit. And it seemed like to him this was totally fine. Like, he didn't necessarily want to have that kind of responsibility. He just enjoyed being in the trenches, so to speak. He just absolutely enjoyed collecting the debts and making sure that when it came time to create torture and to create pain, that he would have all the fun in the world for it. But yes, his ice pick was his favorite, and whenever he would have that, people knew that they would have to pay thereafter. Even then, though, he did absolutely take things so far in some regards. For example, here's some notable instances involving his most notorious murders, because yes, he did indeed kill some people, sometimes for the slightest inconveniences, or other times because of money owed to him. And when that happened, these were the most notable examples. In fact, there was one that was so notorious that it still remains like legendary in the world of the mafia, and that has to do with one of his victims named Peter Cappelletti. This was someone who apparently owed Sam $25,000, which was no doubt a lot of money, especially back then. Either he was trying to keep it away from Sam, or he owed him that money in some debt but just never paid him back. Either way, he was eventually caught by this Mad Sam, and he took him to one of his brother's restaurants. And when he did so, he kept a man basically tied to a boiling hot radiator, one of those old radiators, you know, the ones that sometimes go against the wall that you can never really touch because they are so hot. Well, imagine being kept next to it, chained no less, and touching it for the next 3 days. That's where he was apparently tortured, burned, tortured, hits, broken bodies, ice pick, everything. The works done for 3 straight days. But Mad Sam wasn't done there. Instead, he invited this guy, Peter Cappelletti's family, back to the restaurant on unknown circumstances. Like, he told them, just come on over, probably have a great dinner on his honor, something along those lines. Clearly, of course, not telling them what he just did to their father, Peter. And as they were all seated there in the restaurant for the dinner, that's when Mad Sam brought out the body, in this case of Peter Cappelletti, threw the body on the actual table in front of everybody, bare naked, severely burned, and then he basically started urinating on the body itself. I don't know if he was dead at this point. Most likely he was, this guy Peter Cappelletti, or if he died thereafter, but either way, the message was clear that this is what happens when someone tries to keep money from Mad Sam. He did all of this again in front of the guy's family members. He was promptly paid thereafter. Also, he was so crazy, so mad, that when it came to an order to actually perform a hit on his own brother, a guy named Michael DeStefano, this guy Sam had no problems with it. He took the hit, and apparently he did so because he was angry at the way that his brother was handling things in terms of his drug problem. As weird as it sounds, it seems like this guy Mad Sam had some kind of honor system or something where even he wanted to have his brother held to a standard, but because he was involved in drugs, like he was actually just, I guess, lost in the world and consumption of drugs, then that's when he performed the hit, no problems. And then he began laughing when the police started asking him about the hit itself. But one other instance that stands out has to do with an argument that eventually led to the death of a loan collector, a guy by the name of Leo Foreman. Apparently he was there in the office, Mad Sam, with this guy Leo Foreman. They got into a big argument, and then he was thrown out of the office. So realizing that maybe he was just insulted or he wasn't going to let this go at all, Mad Sam later invited him back. I guess he took him somewhere, maybe to a location, maybe to a restaurant, on the prefix that it was going to be a makeup kind of thing. Like he was sorry about what happened. Here, let me go do this. I'll make it up to you. But instead, of course, he kidnapped this guy, this Leo Foreman, and then took him back to another basement. And then that's when he spent a good while, him and some other men, 2 other total, so 3, including Sam, all together with a hammer and then the ice pick, basically beating up this guy's knees, his crotch, his head, and then his ribs. And then when that happened, that's when he was stabbed 20 times thereafter with the ice pick and then shot right in the head. So it goes to show again that even though there was just a slight inconvenience, in this case getting yelled at by this guy Leo Foreman, Mad Sam took things to another degree and made sure that he enacted his revenge. It didn't stop there too. When it comes to the moniker Mad Sam, even when he was taken to jail on certain occasions, he liked to represent himself. He would show up there in pajamas. Sometimes he would even purposely show up on stretchers. He was known for giving long rants there in the courthouse while he was representing himself, and he would even do so while carrying a bullhorn. It was clear, of course, that he was doing all of this just to make fun of the entire judicial system, and knowing that they couldn't do anything, because when you represent yourself, it seems like you can kind of get away with a lot of things short of anything that the judge would eventually just throw you out for. But either way, it's obvious that he wanted to make certain that this judicial system was just made fun of as much as possible. That actually became his eventual downfall. If you wanted to know whatever happened to Mad Sam, all his life, all his notorious bad murders, everything he did, his torturous ways, it all eventually caught up to him. Because the way the story goes, eventually he was going to be found. Some guy named Grimaldi was able to go with the FBI and start testifying against some of the mafioso members, and I think that included actually this guy Mad Sam. So instead of being brought into court one more time, where this would have been a very, very highly publicized trial, the Chicago outfit, it seems like they decided that they wanted to keep things quiet, and the best way to do so was to get rid of Mad Sam, knowing how much he was going to make a mockery of the system. It would just attract yet more attention, and that would take away from the activities that they want to do, which is essentially keep things quiet and make money. So they decided that they wanted to go ahead and kill this guy Mad Sam, and the way they did so is they tricked him. They told him that they found the Grimaldi's safe house, which was the house that he was supposed to be kept safe during his government witness days, and so they told Sam to go ahead and meet them at that house, and then that way they can take care of him together. But that's when he was in there, that's when he found out, of course, that this was going to be something in terms of an actual killing, but in this case, he was going to be killed. He was shot point blank with a shotgun. It killed him, and then that's when he ended up dying. This was April 14th, 1973. To be exact. And if you wanted a little bit more trivia on who exactly did the killing of him, it was no less than his mentee, because this guy, Mad Sam DeStefano, was a mentor to Tony the Ant Spilotro. Crazy world, huh? If you wanted to then see essentially like how much of the bad things that Tony the Ant Spilotro did in his own mafia career, where he got all those learnings from, it basically came from this guy, from this Mad Sam. And so in a bit of poetic justice, he ended up actually being killed and shot by Tony the Spilotro as a hit too. So, but that's it. That's pretty much all the info associated with this anonymous guy. This guy again, Miss Mad Sam DeStefano, that a lot of people would never know of if you ever asked their name, if you ever asked them if they knew his name in the mafia world. But considering again the notorious activity that he did and how he's considered by FBI agents, both past and present, as one of the worst torture murderers in the history of the U.S., you can see now why he has that moniker to his name. But if anyone has any more info, anything else I might have missed, please post those comments below. If you ever wanted to go see his cemetery, apparently he's there resting in Queen of Heaven Catholic Cemetery. Yes, indeed. Even somebody as notorious as this apparently can get a Catholic cemetery grave, no less. So, but if you wanted to go see it there, that's where essentially his resting place is. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.